កម្មវិធីកិច្ចសន្ទនាកម្ពុជានិងពិភពលោក
Good evening, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. Tonight, I have the pleasure to have a friend, from UNDP, and I thought it would be nice to cover a bit this time on development issue, but still relate to trade, to economic, to green growth, climate change, global issue that are somehow impacting not just the world but directly Cambodia, and also for my purely personal memory lane, because I started with UNDP a long time ago. So I have the pleasure to have with me today Nick Beresford. He's the country director of UNDP Cambodia. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Jim Rupsaw. My name is Nick Beresford. I'm very pleased to be on the show today. I'm country director with UNDP Cambodia. I've been with the UN for about 16 years in a number of different countries.
Well, I mean, 16 years, you still look very young. But where were you before your posting before coming to Cambodia?
Well, in reverse order, immediately before I was in Bangladesh.
Yes.
Before that, I was in Somalia.
Yeah.
And then East Timor.
Okay.
And then I was in headquarters in New York.
Okay, great. So you basically have pretty much seen a whole portfolio of global issue, I would say, because these are countries that are I would say are going through a lot of development crisis issue. But I think this is where I see the role of UNDP in a bit, because you work quite a bit on MDG at that time, right? Now we sort of graduate to SDG. Perhaps you want to tackle a bit this. Well, we're gonna start with a macro issue, okay? Yeah, SDG as we speak now, the 2030 development agenda. But maybe we start a bit from the genesis, which is the MDG.
Yeah, that is a good place to start. And I think also when we start thinking about that, we have to acknowledge the tremendous success Cambodia has had in the MDG period.
Yes.
It's been quite the star performer.
Yeah.
So in that 15-year period to 2015, Cambodia more than tripled its GDP.
Yes.
It more than halved poverty. So you had this tremendous growth.
Yes.
But that growth was also very inclusive.
Yeah. But when after the peace process, we were what more than 50%, right, in terms of poverty rate. No?
It was above 50%. You're right. It was above 50% in terms of the poverty line.
Yes.
So I mean the success in terms of, first of all, peace building.
Yes.
I think that transition was enormously successful.
Yes.
I mean, how many other countries have gone through a civil war period that recently, and then come to a period of not just peace but absolute peace, where there's a complete cessation of violence, hostility, and have this tremendous growth, and that growth includes everybody. It's been strongly inclusive.
What do you make out about this inclusiveness? Is that the policy framework? What do you think are the reason behind, or the element of the factor, or the approach behind this inclusiveness?
I don't think there are any development success stories really where government didn't play a key role.
Yes.
And I think what government did here was the peace building. Was to ensure a successful end to the hostilities, which enabled then people then to become productive, people to move out of poverty. So that's number one. Number two, I think government was absolutely right to focus on supporting private sector.
Yes.
So let private sector do the heavy lifting, but then also make sure that they're supported in terms of a very open economy, a very dynamic economy, very welcoming to foreign direct investment, and so on. And then you've seen through the channel of private sector growth, and particularly through labor-intensive industries such as ready-made goods, garments, and so on, with a keen focus on exports.
Yes.
You know, that's been the way that it's absorbed large numbers of people into productive employment and helped them move up and over this poverty line.
So this is quite an achievement, because I remember years ago when I was with the Ministry of Commerce, we sort of pioneered with the idea to it's the linkage between the export to US or to Europe with the respect of labor law. This is quite an innovative approach that sort of helped Cambodia a lot secure a fair market share of the so-called labor export linkage.
Well, the work that you did at WTO, you know, and with Cambodia, I think was pivotal. I mean, it was really important, and this focus on I say on the export market. I mean, now about 75% of our exports, the exports from Cambodia, are in the garments.
Yeah.
And you know, it's been a classic development success story for other countries. I mean, I've just mentioned I came from Bangladesh.
Yes.
Bangladesh is also another country that also very successfully looked at labor-intensive garment industry. It focused on the exports. It focused on making sure that it made use of its LDC status in terms of negotiating the ability to enter markets in Europe, America, and so on.
Yeah.
And that's been, that's been a very successful way forward.
MDG-wise, okay, there's a lot of indicator. We're doing well in terms of reducing poverty, reducing mortality, infant mortality. This is also something that we did quite well, no? Education, what are other things that you think we have done well relative to other countries?
Well, I think on all those big numbers, you know, infant and child mortality, maternal health and mortality, and longevity. I mean, we know like the average lifespans are now plus 70 here, which is incredible when you think about it.
Think about that, it was plus 50.
Yes.
About 3 decades ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a remarkable progress.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think now the challenge is now we've got to sort of move into a new development scenario. You know, and the challenge of the SDGs is very different from the MDGs.
In what way?
The MDGs first of all, the MDGs were developed in a very top-down way. It was just a small number of people in New York really cooking up I mean, it was very successful. I mean, I would say it was a great development agenda. And but the SDGs was really inclusive, very bottom-up, as well as involving member state governments. So I think everybody contributed to this. So I think there's a real sense of shared ownership behind it.
But you know, to be fair to MDG, I think you got to start somewhere, right?
No, absolutely.
You got to start somewhere, and I think to me, it have generated enough momentum of success, of hope, to enable all the stakeholders to say, wait a minute, I want to be a part of that also. And that's, to me, that's how I see, you know, the SDGs being pushed from bottom up. See, so where are we standing now in terms of starting to implement the SDG? Where's Cambodia preparation and UNDP contribution?
Well, I mean, Cambodia's in a good place, but the pressure is on. You know, because Cambodia's been such a star performer in the MDGs, everyone's expecting
that we continue.
They continue to lead in the SDGs. I think, you know, the preparations have been good so far. But, you know, we have the rectangular strategy, the industrial development policy. You know, so we have, you know, clear ways that government is bringing in concepts of the SDGs and putting them into national strategies, and you know, and prioritizing the right ones and looking to 2030. So I think there's a clear commitment there. You know, I think there's more to be done, but I think there's a clear commitment there, and it's definitely on a good path in that respect.
Yes. Well, I think the regional environment is also conducive to support our development strategy in the context that we are now in the ASEAN Economic Community. You know, it's a lot of, I would say, attention on regional and global supply chain, how Cambodia fit into the process, the linkage with the small and medium enterprise. These are all the elements I think give Cambodia a good chance, you know, to catch up.
Yeah, ASEAN celebrated 50 years this year. It's a remarkable organisation, and Cambodia right at the heart of it. And this area in particular has such strong growth and such strong development and such strong development potential.
Yes.
That I think, going back to the SDG idea, I think, ASEAN, Cambodia, very much focused in the right area, this dynamic way forward. I think in the SDGs, one of the things that's very different from the old MDGs is it's much more of a political agenda. It has big ideas at the heart of it. Like, so MDG 1, we wanted to halve poverty. Yeah. Very ambitious and a laudable objective, of course. Cambodia achieved this 4 years ahead of target.
Wow!
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah. And but the SDG sets the bar even higher. It says no poverty.
Yes.
It's absolute. I mean, if you look at gender equity, it says no gender discrimination. Not reduce it, but end it.
Yes.
So the scale of the ambition of the SDGs is a lot bigger, and it really calls for us to have these dynamic policy interventions and to set our ambitions at that high level to make this work.
So UNDP office in Cambodia work quite a bit. Who are your main counterpart that you work for the SDG preparation for now?
At the moment, I would say about half of our work is centered around Ministry of Environment, National Council for Sustainable Development.
Okay. Yeah.
There we're working on things like the environmental codes.
Okay.
And we're working with the Climate Change Alliance, working with partners like the European Union, Sweden, USAID, and so on. And again, looking at I would say maybe two main areas. I think first of all is strengthening the institutions. The institutions are key in terms of the government's ability to make the successful middle income transition.
Yes.
And so we think about the challenge of climate change.
Yes.
We think about the necessity to protect the environment, to make sure that the growth is locked in, that the growth doesn't run out.
Yes.
So that's institutional capacity building, particularly the Ministry of Environment. I mean, we're very lucky to have His Excellency Siphana,
yes,
a very dynamic minister. We saw the meeting this week with the Prime Minister on the environment. We saw fresh commitments to the Prime Minister ordered the setting up of an environmental fund at the local level.
Yes.
So there's a lot happening there on the institutions. I think this is our way forward.
Nick, I think I'm going to take a short break now, but when we come back, I want to continue a bit the climate change discussion, but more from the perspective on how the private sector can contribute, right? And I cannot think of a better angle than pushing for green growth, about technology, how to improve our environment, and yet have business opportunity for young entrepreneur, for business, for us to attract foreign direct investment. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Nick, I mentioned about green growth, but I want to give a bit of larger context. Early this year, I accompanied the Prime Minister to Davos, and the World Economic Forum for the last couple of years. They've been stressing the fourth industrial revolution, which is quite big concept. I don't know, it's quite big. But if you break it down, right, it's a lot of components that relate to climate change. Also, it's about green growth, it's about using technology, it's about creating business opportunity. It's a paradigm shift, right? But still, it sort of like push out the old technology, but it bring in a new technology. And to me, I think there's an opportunity for Cambodia to also skip the learning curve. You see the landscape of Phnom Penh from a horizontal capital to a vertical capital. There's a lot of construction being built, but where is green growth coming? How do we build a better city? How do we build a smarter city? Any perspective on that?
I think previously there was the idea, particularly in the 70s, where you had kind of concern about environment, but then a concern for growth, and then the idea that it was a zero-sum game, that there was a trade-off, that one cost the other. And I think nowadays then it's much more sophisticated. We now actually see the interdependence between the two. That if we in this region in Asia, we will see by 2030 the emergence, we hope, of 4.5 billion more middle class people coming in to not just above the poverty line, but right above the poverty line. And 60% of these new middle class consumers will be here in Asia. So we're right in the heart.
60%.
So we're right at the heart of this huge transition. And for that transition to be successful, we can't use a brown growth trajectory. Because then the growth that would happen would have such destructive consequences that it would actually reverse the gains. So we have to find other ways going forward. And I think in the Asia region in particular has been very successful in adopting the idea of green growth. It's not politically controversial. It's seen really as an opportunity. It's seen as a sort of really as a technical problem, technical opportunity. And this is I think this perspective is the way to go forward, so that we get there to 2030. We build this strong, resilient middle class. But we do it without destroying the planet. That's really, if you like, the essence of the.
But technology will play a major role in ensuring that this transition is as frictionless as possible.
But take solar power or photovoltaic cells.
I was about to say that.
I mean, if you go even 5 years ago, you wanted to put solar panels onto an enterprise, a building, and you looked at the payback period. You were looking at maybe 15 years or something. Quite a long term. But that's tumbled down to now something between 3 and 5 years. You
can recover in 3 and 5 years.
Very, very quickly now. There's what they call a Moore's law. They used to apply it to computers, that the power of the computer increased exponentially every year. Now that's applying to solar power. So that we can see solar power costs fall down further and further and further. It's
reverse exponential.
Exactly. So if you think about this as a wave of technology and a wave of energy opportunity, you want to get on that wave.
I think to my knowledge is that the government is working, piloting with the Asian Development Bank in one of the industrial zone in Beresford, Cambodia-Vietnam border, where they start with this sort of like massive farm, solar farm. And I think the rate is quite very competitive as compared to traditional, coal power generated power plant. But again, I think more again back to inclusiveness, right? Because what happened to people in remote province area? Now they do have access, with this solar panel, access to electricity, of course. But to me, I think larger than that. I think that when you have a light bulb, right, it's more than just light. It's an opportunity for kids,
to
study, do homework at night. It's a possibility, for the wife, to do something decent, sewing or whatever. You don't know. It's productive capacity in a way that enable through this sort of like renewable energy.
It's the dignity and quality of life. The people, everybody's included, so that everybody can get on the national grid, which is a commitment of the government, which is excellent to see. So solar power and other forms of renewable energy. We have a large hydro power sector here in Cambodia. These are great ways to get the growth, and particularly industrial as well. So stimulating jobs and so on, but also then to protect the environment. I mean, look at China. China is investing more than double the amount than USA in renewables and in solar power. The government there is very keenly focused on knowing that this new technology is rapidly emerging, and you need to get into it now to ensure that you realize the full benefits as it matures. And I think that opportunity is in ASEAN and in Cambodia too.
I think I look at the Paris Accord, the climate change Paris Accord, and I believe that that accord, for countries who believe in it, and actually, of course, they have to ratify and sign, ratify, right? But if you take seriously that accord into consideration, it will force you to in a new path of policy thinking, and it will require subsequently investment. Of course, if you have a clear policy direction, you put the resource, right? You put the effort, you bring the right partner to come in. And like you say, if 5 or 6 years is a good rate of return, you will see a change in the local economic development aspect of it.
Yeah.
This is where I see the prospect for Cambodia in terms of moving along that track, because we have a very committed Minister Environment,
Very.
And we have to ride on that policy commitment.
Yeah, and the opportunity is to locking in the growth. I mean, because if you think about this 7% rate of growth, which is remarkable.
Yes.
But then you also look at the development plans for the 2020s taking us to 2030, and you look at the financial envelope needed, and you look at the resources. It requires that we maintain the 7%.
Yes.
Now, to lock in that 7% to make it more resilient, then you need, I think, then to encourage the policies that we're already seeing in terms of sustainable development. I think solar power is an excellent example of one which can you add to the energy mix, and it strengthens that energy mix.
Yes.
As we lower energy costs, we crowd in more foreign direct investment. Suddenly a lot of projects that just didn't make sense before suddenly become profitable. When the power generation costs come down. So it's a key aspect, I think, of keeping the economy at that very high level of growth and keeping it going forward. And of course, making Phnom Penh and making Cambodia continue to be a very lovely place to live. You're not generating the pollution, which we've seen in many of the other mega cities. The tremendous health impacts. Very dangerous and very costly as well when those health impacts start to be realized.
I think in terms of renewable energy, Cambodia have so much opportunity to also look at the other area like biomass, thing like this. Like we produce 8 or 9 million metric ton of paddy. Imagine how many husks that can be burned. Instead of and later on, use the ash to turn into a fertilizer. There's so many value-added approach that we can regenerate all this existing resource, in terms of as a substitute for that matter, So I'm quite upbeat about that. But Nick, let's go a bit more on the prospect of Cambodia future. You mentioned about we need to lock in that 7%. To me, I'm more a trade guy. And everything around more trade, because Cambodia, let's face it, we are a trading nation. Trade matter for Cambodia. Our growth up to now has been sustained by trade, by globalized world, anti-protectionism, that sort of thing. We have graduated, I would say, from the World Bank nomenclature, lower income country. Now we move up one notch to lower middle income country. The middle income trap is always in our mind, and let's be real about that. So how do you see from that perspective?
I think the middle income...
What will be the challenge? That's what I'm trying to say.
I think the real challenge then with the middle income transition, or the opportunity then, is really a policy issue. It's because the danger is that the success of the policies that got you to here make you want you to naturally hold on to them. And to not change them.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it may well be that the policies that got us this far aren't going to be the same policies that get us further. So we have to have that courage to let them go and to adopt new policies, experiment a little, find out which ones work, and then move on forward.
Yes.
We need to diversify. So, the garments industry has been a great success story, and there's no denying that. But then, the government is well aware of the need to diversify that to de-risk, if you like, industrial policy. Also, we want to build up the skills. This is part of the rectangular strategy. This is a key pillar. And then that higher level of skills can fit into a more diversified industrial mix. And then you're solving two problems at the same time. And you're helping on this emergence of not people just above a poverty line. We're setting the ambition much higher. We're looking at moving people into a solid middle class place where you have health insurance, where you have great education, where you have all the you enjoy the prosperity, and I think this is very possible through these two channels.
We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to delve deeper into the challenge of, say, a few more years when we would graduate from the least development country status. All right?
Sure.
Nick, I think up to now, Cambodia is still considered as a least developed country. From a UN nomenclature perspective, I think there are different sort of criteria. We sort of, surpass already the 1,000 GDP per capita threshold, but there's other criteria which you can mention later on that will sort of like disqualify us from many of the trade preference, like for example the Everything But Arms initiative, for example, offered by the EU. That's how we export so much rice and many goods to Europe. But say 4 or 5 years down the road when we graduate, what do you see the challenge of in terms of competition? How Cambodia would compete without having this trade preference?
The LDC criteria is very different from the low income, middle income. The low income, middle income is just simply a measure, as you know, of gross national income, and it's just a line, a dollar line that you cross over. It has some effects on discretionary of lending within the World Bank and so on. The LDC status comes through a UN mechanism, and it's a bit more sophisticated because it's looking at other dimensions like access to health, longevity, education, and so on, as a more holistic measure of a nation's development. I think in that there is then the scope also for the country itself to negotiate its own way forward on LDC status, whether it wants to move more quickly or whether it wants to move more gradually. And also sometimes along the way to make other agreements. I'm thinking of Mauritania, I'm thinking of Bhutan, I'm thinking of other countries who have been into that process and have done, I think, very good negotiations that have clearly thought through the consequences of this transition and thought, okay, what are the opportunities for here?
Okay.
And I think if you think of Cambodia, often the first thing that comes to mind is the official development assistance, the ODA. And yes, of course, it does have an impact, but I think because the ODA anyway is coming down and down as a percentage of GDP, and it is frankly less important. I think that you touched on the main issue. I think it's obviously the trade.
Yes.
That is far more important. So I think it's essential then that in this transition, one, it's managed properly so that you have to have good information. You have to have very good research and analysis and look at the different scenarios. Yeah. Decide on a good policy and then a good negotiation.
Yes.
Then there's the opportunity, and then you can find these good trade deals and make sure that they work for Cambodia, and of course that's very beneficial to growth.
Yes. Well, trade deal in our region now, it's basically the big mega free trade, which is the regional economic RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is ASEAN plus the 6 major Asian countries. I hope that by the end of the year or at the latest next year, this mega free trade will be concluded. The TPP was sort of shelved a bit after America pulled out, but in our region, the biggest deal is RCEP. So I think when the RCEP become a reality, that will offer Cambodia great possibility to explore not just European market, US market, but also with the Asian giant, with Australia, with Japan, India, Korea, China for that matter. So I think this is something that I quite upbeat about it. The Japan is quite upbeat about our Mekong sub-region. they are developing the growth corridor, the border development zone, because look, all these cars who are assembled in Thailand, now they're looking for supply chain, and Cambodia is benefiting.
Right.
So, and our industrial development policy is clearly there to help. My understanding from extensive instruction there is that the OECD is coming to help us on formulating, attractive investment policy and incentive, so that we are able to capture this supply chain, or at least 10 to 20% of the supply chain. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's tremendous regional opportunities within ASEAN and the wider area. China, of course, we have very large amounts of private Chinese investment as well as public. The Belt and Road Initiative as well has a great global potential. And there's a very significant part for Cambodia to play in that. So I think taking this very activist role in terms of ASEAN and in terms of Cambodia itself, to open up and to accelerate, trading blocks.
Yes.
I think it's extremely important. It's been successful up to now. That's one of the policies I wouldn't change.
Yes.
I would do more of the same and encourage
full commitment to regionalization.
Yeah, I think if ASEAN, the only regional bloc I think that it really stands comparison to is maybe the European Union.
Yes.
Again, an extremely successful bloc. Rather like ASEAN as well. Great results in terms of peace building, creating a peaceful region that people often underappreciate that aspect of it.
Yes.
But then, as you say, then the trade, the investment, and the growth, have been great successes, and there's more potential, particularly here, to do more of the same.
You touch on a word that sort of triggered in my mind. You mentioned about peace. Cambodia is a good case that without peace, stability, we wouldn't have that growth. And that lead me to the agenda of the new Secretary General of the UN. We're quite excited. There's a new Secretary General, new agenda. What do you make of his, vision?
Well, it's emerging now, so I think it's a work in progress. Antonio Guterres is a really inspiring boss. Actually, he's so it's quite an exciting time. He's focused a lot on this idea of building in peace, security, human rights, good governance, and also diffusing crises before they happen. Being able to take preventative measures. So that where we see escalations of tensions, that the United Nations system is able to work with member countries to help avoid a crisis erupting into conflict or to state collapse or so on. Because once they do, yes, we have humanitarian responses and so on, but they're very unsatisfactory in a number of ways. The lives lost is a huge tragedy. But then there is the great loss in terms of growth, in terms of development.
Yes.
And it's a very inefficient use of our resources to clean up a mess afterwards. We can do this, but where we can be preventative. Cambodia is a great example, I think, in the peacekeeping. These things are never straightforward or wholly successful in every aspect, but broadly, I think, I was also in East Timor, in one of the countries I served before here. I think the UN has done very good work there, helping to stabilize and bring out a successful outcome.
In the case of Cambodia, for a country who have received so much help in a post-crisis period, now it's quite amazing that we're able to transform that energy, that knowledge, that experience in the mining, and now we are part of a very active part of the UN peacekeeping operation in different parts of the world. So this is something that I feel that the UN could really take advantage of this sort of success story, this positive contribution, which Cambodia is proud to contribute. A few months ago we even lost life. Several of our peacekeeping force died in ambush I think it was in Central Africa.
In Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes. So, but things like this, you talk about sacrifice. People sacrifice their life for the purpose of peace. And I think, the UN Secretary General agenda is quite noble. I look forward to see the outcome of the upcoming General Assembly, in New York. So let's see how who gonna inspire who, and how can we Cambodia play a good part in this process.
It's an excellent example, the demining and the peacekeeping. Where before Cambodia was a recipient of assistance, and now is an expert. And is in Somalia, in South Sudan, other places, and has taken the hard-won expertise here and there. UNDP's worked for many years in the demining sector here. In the current program, almost 500,000 people have benefited from land freed up from landmines along the Thai border, Pailin, Battambang, around there, and now put back into productive usage, usually for farming communities. It's a wonderful example, I think, of the and a measure of the success of the transition. And quite rightly, I think, a source of national pride. To contribute to this,
to give back,
international
to
effort,
give back,
and to give back, and for other countries to benefit from the leadership that has been created here.
Well, Nick, we're coming to the end of the program. Maybe I give you a minute if you have any message for the audience. If you have.
Sure. Well, UNDP has been working in this country now since the 1950s. We came back in the 1980s after the war period. We worked extensively in the peacekeeping mission to help re-establish the institutions of state. And Cambodia has been a remarkable success story in building that peace and building that prosperity. And in the rectangular strategy, we see the importance of institutions of governance, including human rights. And we are very pleased to be part of that and support the government of Cambodia. And we think that the future is very bright in terms of the ability to achieve the sustainable development goals here in Cambodia.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on a short notice and have a nice heart-to-heart dialogue on how we see, not yet, okay. All right. I have to shake hand one more time. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming for such a short notice, and to have a nice, heart-to-heart exchange on how we see the Millennium Development Goal evolving to the SDG, climate change issue, how Cambodia can contribute by looking more to have the private sector being more involved in the green growth, and last to have a glimpse a bit on the new UN Secretary General vision on how we see a world where peace should prevail, and what we all should do to ensure that conflict are being tackled before it flares up. But I think I really enjoyed this 45 minutes.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. All right. Okay, we're coming to the end of the show, and I think I wrap up already in my short summary. I just want to say that I hope you can learn something from our exchange. 45 minutes, but we go way back for the last 20 some years since we have the peace accord, Paris Peace Accord, and we come a long way. And Nick have said nicely that for a country that have been a recipient of the world in rebuilding its devastated economy, we are now in position to contribute back into the community and nation in the form of a peacekeeping operation, sharing experience, helping country demine. These are some of the things that Cambodia as a country should be proud of.